In the news tonight, Ministry of Health shifts focus to maritime islands. Fiji hopes to secure recognition of vaccination rollout. And vaccine program in the Lao group progressing well.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Edwin Nunn.
Pulabnaka, Fiji. The worst of COVID-19 in the central and western divisions are over. However, Fijians have been urged not to become complacent. Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, says the bed occupancy rate is low and the ministry has more than 80% reserved space in the intensive care units. Kritika Kumar reports.
The Ministry of Health has seen a drop in the positivity rate, which has been noted as a positive indicator.
All our various ventilators, our air valves and oxygen stations are almost, quite a lot of them are actually empty at the moment because of the fall in cases.
Dr. James Fong says while work continues in other divisions, their focus is on the maritime islands.
Malolo, we have been able to track the entry of the disease and who the disease has been spread to, so our containment program is working there.
Minister for Health Dr. Nambete says the vaccination effort in the maritime island is progressing well.
In Lakemba and even in Sasambola, at that time, with the registration, we had somewhere around 83% already registered, which was actually a really good sign.
The ministry has warned Fijians not to become complacent as they continue to monitor test positivity, hospitalizations and deaths to track the outbreak progress. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Fiji is pursuing mutual acceptance of the vaccine program to resume international travel and also open up opportunities for other industries. The government hopes to secure recognition of our vaccination rollout ahead of the proposed opening of borders in November. Christiana Uluwai reports.
Securing these agreements with various countries will allow Fiji to explore markets from where tourists can be allowed in.
We believe that there would be a need to have what we call bilateral arrangements in terms of vaccine rollout programs. And once that is recognized, then you could actually bring in people to those countries. And indeed, Fijians would want to travel to some of those destinations, whether it's for business or sporting, tournaments or activities.
The Ministry of Tourism will be setting the momentum by endorsing strict protocols once international borders reopen.
For visitors, determining which markets to accept on what particular conditions, setting up vaccine passports and a mutual recognition, creating a seamless travel authorization portal, and determining where tourists go in Fiji.
Fiji will greatly benefit from these bilateral agreements, given the socio-economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Christiana Uluwai, FBC News.
The Health Ministry has noted a significant increase in the number of Fijians in Lao who are now fully vaccinated. Health Minister Dr. Yvo Villages says most of the eligible population in the province have received their first dose and they hope to achieve 100% full vaccination over the next few weeks. Josiah Nanunga reports.
The current enthusiasm from the people of Lao receiving the vaccine is unprecedented as they now realize its importance to again unlock doors of opportunities that have been closed since last year.
So we are pleased with what's happening in Lao, and we sincerely hope that everyone will be vaccinated, especially those wanting to go back has to make sure that they are fully vaccinated before heading back, and also for the other maritime areas that we're working on.
Rabualu village headman Semesa Lesi says over 15 Rabualu villages in Totoya, Lao have received their first dose.
The villagers have welcomed the vaccination campaign. Now all of the villagers who are above the age of 18 have received their first dose. They can't wait to receive their second jab. This is a ticket that will open up borders and lifting of maritime travel suspension.
Dr. Nambete says getting the jab will also ensure their safety when maritime travel reopens.
There is a very strict protocol around, testing, the quarantine and then going across and quarantine and testing again.
Health officials are working around the clock to ensure islands that haven't been visited are targeted over the next few days. Josiah Nanunga, FBC News.
Now to our COVID-19 update. Fiji recorded 240 new COVID-19 infections for the period ending 8 a.m. yesterday. 49 cases were from the West, 32 from the Central Division and 159 from the Eastern Division. There were 3 COVID-19 deaths to report in the last 24-hour period. Fiji has recorded 48,323 cases since April this year. There are now 13,597 active cases with 33,915 recoveries. The COVID-19 death toll stands at 528. The vaccination campaign also continues. 568,676 people, or 96.9% of adults in Fiji, have received the first dose of the vaccine, and 308,258 people, or 52.6%, have been fully vaccinated. The 5 most vaccinated areas are still Mba, Rewa, Nanronga and Naitasiri, all of which have achieved 100% first jabs administered. Next is Nandi. And Kamal Singh of Vatumbongi Mbua is fully vaccinated. He is urging everyone to do their part and get vaccinated. Still to come, sugarcane production progressing well. And concerns about illegal sand and gravel extraction. Welcome back. There are doubts on whether the University of the South Pacific is in fact ranked among the top 10% in the world. A ranking by Times Higher Education rated USP in the band from 1,000 to 1,200 out of about 2,000 institutions surveyed. USP says this represents a placing among the top 10 globally with about 20,000 institutions worldwide. However, Times Higher Education Chief Knowledge Officer Phil Beatty has told Australian media that this is an over-generous interpretation and USP needs to be a bit more modest. This has also been backed by former Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research, Professor Derek Armstrong.
That is not the total of universities in the world, but USP is ranked in the top 1,200 of the 2,000 who were in the rankings. So it is a little bit of a stretch to say it's in the top 10% of universities. It's certainly not in the ranking and even in the world.
USP Acting Deputy Vice-Chancellor Education, Professor Chito Vanualailai, says the ABC report discredits a regional university and causes reputational risks. More on this in our in-depth segment later. The newly renovated and modernized Fiji Police National Command and Coordination Center in Totongo, Suva has been opened. Minister for Defence Inia Seruidatu says this now places high expectations on the force and the onus will be on them to work together to get the desired results. Ritika Pratap reports.
This Command and Coordination Center has state-of-the-art monitoring systems that will offer a more secure and safer Fiji.
Security facility enables and promotes trade, creates investment opportunities as it will improve service delivery through quicker response times, better coordination, effective push and pull of resources, and smarter deployment.
While the upgrades were continuing, the Command Center played an instrumental role in ensuring COVID-safe measures are followed.
And I'm glad that the PCCC was operationalised ahead of schedule during the early stages of this dreadful outbreak. And I understand, or I'm told, that it significantly enhanced the Fiji Police Force's capacity to implement Fiji's world-leading containment operation against the outbreak.
The upgrade was made possible through partnership between Fiji, Australia and New Zealand police forces.
Already this has been a true partnership between Fiji, Australia and New Zealand, with a lot of people working really hard to get this upgrade completed.
Police Commissioner Brigadier General Sitiven Ingiliho says the policing landscape has grown significantly over the last decade. This is where we have to be more innovative and find ways to stay ahead of the challenges.
The opening of the command center fits in well with our strategic way forward as policing becomes more challenging, coupled with increasing demands from members of the public. And the vision is to continue to enhance what we have here today.
More businesses will begin operations in the coming weeks and months, and with the opening of the international borders, security will be an important element of economic growth. Ritika Pratap, FBC News.
Despite the COVID situation, those in the sugarcane industry have coped well in delivering during the harvesting season. According to the FSC Mill Performance Report, more than 700,000 tons of cane has been crushed so far, and more is expected. Felipe Naikaso with the details.
Cane growers, cutters and lorry drivers have been able to adapt well to the COVID environment to ensure there are minimal disturbances during the crushing season.
This is one sector that has been very, I would say, very least affected, and in future we would want to see that things do maintain, in that manner.
So far, more than 60,000 tons of sugar has been made, even though the country goes through the second wave of the virus.
What we can see, the trucks in the mill coming is in good numbers, so we can say there is no problem regarding the manual harvesting, and the machine is also going well.
Also, there was a bit of a hiccup during the start of the crushing season. However, these issues were rectified and production has been up to par.
There is no level of hesitation in terms of the harvesting is concerned, and we also encourage growers to take up the fertilizer and the ratoons to be cultivated on a timely basis.
The association is also pleased that members have also been adhering to the COVID-19 protocols to ensure they remain safe. Felipe Naikaso, FBC News.
There's been an increase in illegal sand and gravel extraction since the COVID-19 lockdown began in April. The Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources says perpetrators have been taking advantage of the minimum movement measures put in place by the Ministry of Health. There are plans to create more public awareness on how to legally acquire a license for extraction in order to address the issue. The ministry says anyone who wishes to extract for personal or commercial use will need to obtain a license from the ministry.
Welcome back. The restoration of cross-border trade and investment is vital in driving regional economic recovery. Trade and Commerce Minister Faiz Koya says returning to trade and investment-led growth hinges on creating enabling conditions for businesses to thrive. Speaking at the Fiji New Caledonia investment webinar, Koya says the government is modernizing the investment law, streamlining and digitalizing approval systems and processes to assist businesses. Ritika Pratap reports.
While lockdowns to contain COVID-19 has affected trade and investment, this can be rectified through regional cooperation.
By building regional trade and economic linkages, we will set the foundation for our economic recovery and a platform for the Pacific Island countries to venture into the global trade arena.
This webinar provided an opportunity to look at untapped economic potentials between Fiji and New Caledonia.
We have been able to introduce Fijian business, the Fijian business environment to a wide audience in New Caledonia, particularly interested investors and buyers. We've also been able to promote premium Fijian-made products and services and connect New Caledonian businesses to Fijian exporters and vice versa.
Investment Fiji Acting Chief Executive Kamal Chetty says Fiji has a lot to offer.
Fiji still has a lot of advantage. Well-educated workforce, tax-free zones. I talked about a lot of incentives, IT connectivity, access to the Pan-Pacific market, which is Australia, New Zealand and others that are available to you as an investor.
Fiji's export bill to New Caledonia stood at $5.4 million last year, while we imported $1.9 million worth of goods. Ritika Pratap, FBC News.
Here, the local exchange rates are set early this morning. Our Fiji dollar gained against one of our major trading partners, the Aussie dollar, as well as the PNG kina and the euro. The Sangomoli lost ground against the other international currencies we cover. On the commodities market, crude oil dropped a few cents but remains above $69 a barrel. Gold dropped to close at $1,791 per ounce, and silver was up at $24.03 per ounce. And we now join Sharon from HFC Bank to give us the latest figures from the money market.
Good evening.
Demand for our Aussie and Kiwi counterparts remained subdued as markets take cover in safe haven US dollar amid weaker risk appetite. Concerns about the Delta variant of the coronavirus saw markets taking cautious bids. Risk sentiment got a bit of boost after influential New York Federal Bank President John Williams said that more progress is needed in the labor market before reducing its monetary stimulus. His comments were, however, not a surprise to market after soft US payroll figures published last week have effectively ruled out any chance of the Fed's tapering this month. Meanwhile, earlier in the morning, the Bank of Canada left its key interest rate at a record low of 0.25% and maintained its current quantitative easing program. The European Central Bank, on the other hand, is expected to cut back its stimulus in their policy decision tomorrow. They are expected to unwind the emergency economic aid it had put in place during the pandemic. And that's all we have from your HFC Bank for today. Thanks for tuning in.
And in growing Fiji, 20 people who lost their jobs due to COVID-19 were assisted through the Ministry of Agriculture's Back to Rural Agriculture Kits program today. The $400 package per farmer aims to assist over 300 people by early next year, and this is part of 9 ongoing programs by the ministry. The packages consist of farming tools, planting materials, and cash. Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy says agriculture is vital in preparation for the reopening of international borders, as those in the sector need to meet the demands from tourism.
Hotels, restaurants will pick up to full capacity progressively. The programs that we have on the ground is basically to target that particular demand. So we don't want to pull off what we are exporting. In fact, we want to further increase our exports.
And that is the latest from my end. But coming up after the break, Yvo Villages raises house foundation to escape rising sea level. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Building double-story houses to escape rising sea levels is the only option for Yvo Villages in Rewa. Turangani Koro Josefa Navusolo says he's noticed a lot of changes since childhood, and sea level rise has been getting worse over the years. Sania Nimboila reports.
Raising the foundation of their houses is the only option for these villagers to avoid water from seeping into their homes.
We can relocate, but all these places are considered as wetland. The only thing we are doing is building 2-story houses to be safe from the rising tides.
Yvo villager Vinaina Navusolo says the rise in sea level have made it impossible for them to do backyard gardening.
Whatever vegetables we plant in our backyard is always affected. It's because of the water that continuously come in during high tide.
The houses near the drains surrounding the village are always flooded. We are working together as a village to help find out ways to help address the issue.
Yvo village in Rewa has over 100 houses with over 400 villages. Sainia Nimboila, FBC News.
Managing a home-based canteen in Rewa is the only income-generating activity for Kesoni Rokoloa. The 65-year-old Yvo villager says his canteen has been operating for more than 10 years and is the one-stop shop for the village. Sanya Nimboila again.
From fish to roro and even basic food supplies, these are some of the things that Kesoni have been selling for more than a decade now.
After retirement, I did some farming and then realized that I am getting old. So I opted for a canteen business to help in my family's daily living.
Rokolo says his canteen has enabled him to buy a fishing boat and a motor engine.
This canteen is helping my family a lot. I am now going fishing and selling the fish to villages. There's a lot of things we can do for sustenance. We just have to work hard.
Like many other businesses, COVID-19 is a major challenge for the Velomani canteen.
It has affected my fish supplies and also affected my customers. It's hard times now. Make use of your talent and help your families generate more income.
The Velo Money store received financial assistance through the microfinance initiative and is now generating income to cater for Rokulo's family, including his grandchildren. Sainiani Boila, FBC News.
In Q&A tonight, we speak with former USP Vice Chancellor for Research, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, Professor Derek Armstrong, about the university's recent global ranking. Thank you very much for joining us. If you could explain how this Times Higher Education ranking works, and is USP in fact in the top 10% ranking in the world?
Yes, the 10% is a slightly, I think, controversial issue because there are about 2,000, just over 2,000 universities who are admitted into this ranking system that you have to apply to be a member of, to be included. And that is not the total of universities in the world, but USP is ranked in the top 1,200 of the 2,000 who were in the rankings. So it is a little bit of a stretch to say it's in the top 10% of universities. It's certainly not in the ranking and even in the world.
You said it's over 5 years, 1,000 publications. Is that entirely over the last 5 years, or are we looking at going back historically?
Certainly acknowledge in particular Professor Rajesh Chandra, because he was the one who determined the strategy that USP would work towards getting admitted into these rankings and recognize the importance of them. So he set out a long-term strategy of investment and support for this, and even before 2016. Professor Alawalia has continued Professor Chandra's strategy.
And Jamie's here with sports.
Vinaka, and good evening in sports tonight. Framework for safe return of sports launched. And options still open for Fuli. Find out more after the break. It's now just a matter of time for sporting activities to resume after the launch of the framework for the resumption of sports and recreational activities today. Consisting of 3 levels of tight measures and restrictions, the framework was prepared with the joint effort of the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Sports Commission, Sports Council and national sporting organizations. Venina Rakautonga has more.
The ball is set to roll for sporting organizations after the Health Ministry approved the Safe Return to Sports framework.
All sporting organizations should have already agreed to protocols in place for the management of illness in athletes and other personnel. You're going to have to really look at what you do for your athletes.
Minister for Youth and Sports Parveen Kumar launched the framework today and reminded all stakeholders of what is at stake.
We must remember that it will depend on us to ensure that once we achieve the return to full contact sports, we don't fall down to square one.
COVID-19 Response Unit General Manager Dr. Anna Maisema says the movement of each level will only depend on the Health Ministry's timeline.
Again, I want to compliment and I'd like to acknowledge the framework because it allows us to go back into sports, allows our children to go back into these activities, but only this time safe.
The 3 levels are play safe stage, open up stage, and good to go level, where full sporting activities will resume. Benina Rakotonga, FBC Sports.
Fijiana Sevens coach Sayasi Fuli is keeping his options open for other coaching opportunities. Fuli hasn't ruled out taking the men's sevens coaching job if approached, but he will have a fair idea of his next move by next week. Reports.
It's a tough journey for us.
Fuli says he has no plan to apply for the men's sevens coaching job.
Right now, I haven't decided anything, but
there's no plan for me to apply for the men's coaching job. Neither what's there, but it's up to FRU to decide what they will offer. Yeah, I don't know what's there next week. They will decide, FRU.
However, the Olympics bronze medal winning coach says he is open to the opportunity.
It will depend next week. Next week is the time FRU will provide the contracts and the offers. So I can confirm next week what's the deal and what's in front of me and the team.
FRU Chief Executive John O'Connor says they will wait for Fully to return to work to discuss the way forward.
Still, as with the players, we've given them time to spend with their families. Once we start rolling into the programs, then we will finalize discussions and see what his intentions are to act.
The current national sevens men's coach is yet to decide whether he wants to lead the team further or not. Talima Terkula, FBC Sports.
The Fiji National Rugby League Vodafone Cup will not take place this year. What was supposed to be a big year for the competition, with plans to invite teams from around the Pacific, has had to be shelved in light of the global pandemic. Karlaini Tavi has more.
With plans in place to have sporting activities up and running again by October, Fiji National Rugby League believes there is not enough time to host the entire tournament.
For the Vodafone Cup season, we are unable to actually execute a full season, and that's why we're looking at a ninth tournament or 9 series to start at the beginning of the off-season period, which is usually from November.
Due to the challenging times, FNRL's sponsorship has been affected as well.
Vodafone has been really supportive during this difficult period. I know they've had to cut down their sponsorship by 30% in the last year. But we're thankful that they've been able to, front up some of the requests that we've had to give to them.
A blessing in disguise for us, especially in preparing for this cancelled World Cup. So, as I said, we are rebuilding again. Preparation has started again.
FNRL Acting Chief Executive Donna Tambe says they're hoping to host a 9th tournament at the end of the year to get things going. Karleni Tavi, FBC Sports.
With today's launch of the Return to Play framework by the Ministry of Sports, the Fiji Football Association hopes to get competitions going again soon. The Fiji FA is aiming to resume its Digicel Premier League in less than 3 weeks. Akuladama has more.
There are exciting days ahead for Fiji football, and just like last year, they have to take all the safety measures.
We feel that by 1st of October, we should be ready to start also without any spectators in the stadium. But that will give us, like we started it last year and this year again, that will give us a platform to see where we are lacking and whatnot, and the government's Ministry of Health to see what needs to be ironed out.
National players are expected to march into Camp in Mba next week to prepare for the World Cup qualifiers.
Very short time frame for Fleming to get the national team players, but we are expecting to get an approval from for national team players to come in from 15th or 20th of September in camp.
Even Fiji FA's newest employee can't wait to share his knowledge.
I'm really confident that I'm in the right place with all these good people to develop something very good.
Fiji FA will know next Tuesday whether they'll have to play the World Cup qualifiers in Qatar. Akuiladama, FBC Sport.
In play of the day, Elmo Kambindu's stylish overhead kick that earned Namibia a victory over Group H opponents Togo in round 2 of the FIFA World Cup African qualifiers. In our quirky sport of the day, Mesoamerican ball game, a sport with ritual associations played since at least 1650 BC by the pre-Columbian people of ancient Mesoamerica. It's now generally known as hip ball. That's it from sports tonight. Coming up in Weird and Wonderful, cows going on helicopter rides in the Swiss Alps. This and more after the break.
Looking at the weather today, a weak trough of low pressure continues to affect the Fiji group, bringing with it cloudy periods and occasional rain. Now to the west, fine morning with cloudy and intermittent shower in the afternoon. Eastwards from Pekaba to Suva, it was a rainy day. In the north, cloudy periods with some showers. Places we will be checking out are Mba, Suva and Savu. Suva recorded the highest humidity levels at 90%. At sea, east to northeast winds 10 to 15 knots and moderate seas. Turning to tides, high tide will be at 8:19 tonight and the next low tide will be at 2:29 a.m. tomorrow. Sunrise is at 6:07. For tomorrow, more rain can be expected for parts of the larger islands. The outlook for Saturday, cloudy periods with some showers and isolated afternoon or evening thunderstorms over the eastern parts and interior of the larger islands and nearby smaller islands, Kandavu, Lau and Lomaiviti group. Our shot of the day. This picture shows the sacrifice and hard work of our frontline workers. They are going far and beyond to vaccinate all eligible Fijians. That's the weather for now, and it's back to Edwin.
In Fijian Pulse, we ask, do you think police are doing a good job in keeping crime rates low during this COVID-19 pandemic?
The police force, they're doing a great job keeping our community safe and everything.
For the police officers, I think they doing a great job. But for people in Fiji, they should also follow the laws of the government so that people are safe.
These are doing their good job.
And recapping our main stories, Ministry of Health shifts focus to maritime islands. Fiji hopes to secure recognition of vaccination rollout and vaccination programs in the Lao group progressing well. For these stories and others, tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. To our poll question this week, we are asking, will you get your child vaccinated when vaccines become available for those between 12 and 17 years? Visit our FPC News website to answer and send us newsworthy pictures and videos, fpcnews@fpc.com.fj, or share it with us via social media. You can also download our FPC app to keep updated with the very latest in news and sports and listen to our 6 radio stations live. That's your news this evening. I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. Modemanda.